Hey guys, welcome into the Guilty as Charged podcast. I am your host, Steven. I'm recording away from my home, so audio might be a little off to the usual basis of it, and Wi-Fi might be a little sketchy, but we'll power through. Joining me as always are Tyler and Alex. Alex, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good.
Pretty good. I love to hear that. Tyler, how are you, man?
I'm doing very well. God, it's the off season. We're so boring that our names are just our names at this point. We are that bored in the off season. Steven, I hear you're somewhere fun. How are you?
Yeah, man, I'm out in the Central Coast with my wife and just hanging out, escaping the hot summer in Fresno, just decompressing a little bit. So it's been a good weekend for us for sure.
Very nice.
Yeah, so today we're going to continue our little team building theme that we started last time with the skill positions this time. So we're each going to draft 6 players in terms of skill positions. Here you can see on the screen that Tyler has shown. So basically, it's almost like a fantasy football draft, but we are trying to take into consideration, age, contracts, long-term potential, and obviously current skill level as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Before we get started there, we obviously recorded our last episode before Julio Jones was traded to the Tennessee Titans, which has now become official. He's going to be wearing the number 2 for them, which is super weird. Ended up getting traded for a 2nd and a 4th round pick. And the Tennessee Titans are taking on all of his guaranteed contract is $15.3 million, which seemed to be kind of the selling or breaking point for whoever was trading for him. But yeah, Julio Jones gets traded to the Titans. Tyler, what was your kind of initial thought process there once you heard that he was going to Tennessee and how much the Tennessee Titans were giving away for him?
I was never on the give up a first train like you guys were, but I would have given up what they gave up for Julio Jones, that's for sure. And when I heard that was the deal, I heard there was initially it was like a 2nd and a little something else. I'm looking, maybe it's like another 2nd, maybe it's another 3rd or something, but no, like it was a pretty cheap deal for them. So congratulations to the Titans. The one thing I'll say is it's possible that they did do Julio. I mean, they did do Julio right, but it's possible that they asked him, what AFC team would you want to go to? Can't put you in the NFC, but we can put you in AFC as long as we get a good deal out of it. Where would you like to go? And I think the closest that he could have gone to where he's used to being, which is high school in Alabama, college at Alabama, and the pros in Georgia, is going to Tennessee. So I really think that kind of works out and is potentially an angle that we're not looking at. But otherwise, yeah, good for the Titans. Kind of bummed the Chargers didn't do it. Stock up from Mike Williams, I guess. And here we go. Let's see. They believe in him as wide receiver too, and let's see if it pays off.
Yeah, so I think that the cost actually wasn't too much. It ultimately ended up being a 2nd and a 4th. Would have given that up, but unlike a lot of Chargers Twitter, I didn't have such like a visceral "what the fuck, Telesco? Why didn't you do this?" Ultimately,
Yeah.
I don't think there's a huge point to giving up that much if Julio didn't want to be here, and it seemed like he wanted to be in Tennessee. I would have given that up if he was interested in coming to the Chargers, but this whole process seemed to be really, hey, Julio, where do you want to go? And we'll talk to those teams. The Patriots were in it for a while, maybe, but yeah, the Titans made a lot of sense, and that ended up being the day. We'll get to Devontae Adams talk in a second. But I'm not too mad that they didn't trade for Julio Jones. I didn't think that this was the year to go all in, although I would have done the move. But it just seemed like Julio Jones really didn't want to be anywhere else. But Tennessee, weird, can't relate. Just wanting to be a diehard Titan, I guess. But yeah.
Well, I mean, Nashville's a great city, and the Titans have been competitive, and there is some kind of debate that you could be having about whether or not the Titans are true contenders. I mean, they were in the AFC Championship 2 years ago. They obviously lost in the first round of the playoffs this year. It's an interesting move for them to make because they spent most of the offseason kind of tearing down the roster, shedding dead weight and players who were not performing, kind of up to their standard. And so it's a little curious of a move. But I mean, offensively, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch is just as a casual fan, because I mean, they face 8-man boxes on such a frequent basis with Derrick Henry. And I mean, you have now AJ Brown and Julio Jones, who have very similar skill sets and, very physically imposing vertical threats who can stretch the field, do all the route running in the book. And so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But, the Tennessee Titans, I really feel like, they have a good offensive line and obviously the receiving trio of Derrick Henry, but their defense is a major work in progress. So, we'll have to see what happens there. I never really felt like the Chargers were going to be in on Julio Jones. I figured that they would do their homework. Tom Telesco has always done that. But at the end of the day, I think if it was just giving up the picks, they probably could have been more interested. But the Falcons were hell-bent on getting a team to take on 100% of Julio Jones's contract, which apparently is going to be reworked in Tennessee. But that's a non-starter, I think, for someone like Tom Telesco, who has done a ton of work over the last couple of years to make sure that the Chargers are in, a cap positive situation. And I'm glad that Alex pointed out, next year, to me, is the all-in, you push your chips into the center of the table, plant your flag kind of year, because they're going to have 50, 60, maybe even more dollars in cap space. And then they'll have 9-10 draft picks, depending on exactly how the compensatory picks work out. So it's obviously a complex situation. And Tom Telesco, clearly was not into that kind of risk.
And that's completely fine. Like, it would have been really fun to have him on the team for sure.
Right.
But there are moves next season I'm more interested in, I think. And even just with the long term, like Julio Jones, if you get him for like 2 more years, that's really good for win now. But I think this is a 2-year retool for the Chargers. So I'm all in next season. Try to get a right tackle. If you want to go for Adams, go for it. Give up half your cap space. Have at it.
Yeah, same. I generally agree that, next year is the all-in. As far as Devontae Adams, I don't think he's actually leaving Green Bay, just because I think they'll give him a 4-year, whatever he wants kind of deal. He's that good. The Packers have never had the best receiver in the NFL, and now they do. So I just can't believe they would let that walk. But the Packers have done stupid things that have led them into this situation with Aaron Rodgers. So I guess I can't be surprised. But yeah, next year I think is the push it in all year, as you guys have kind of said, and we've said for a couple podcasts now. But if they wanted to do the Julio move or 2, 3, 4 more years, or basically to the end of Justin Herbert's rookie contract, I would have been fine with that. But Devontae Adams is younger, and he's not the only guy. You can also go after other guys in free agency, and then obviously you have the draft. I'm not in love with next year's receiver class, but never mind. Maybe I'll change my mind on that.
Yeah, and if Mike Williams pans out the way that the Chargers coaching staff seems to think that he can, who knows what the case is. Like, so much is conjecture at this point, because we're a year away from free agency pretty much, or 9 months if you want to get specific. But I think there are various ways in which the Chargers can go all in for next season. I think, like right now, sitting here in June, something I really would be interested in doing for the Chargers is trading up into the draft to get one of the premier edge rushers in next year's draft. It seems beyond just Kayvon Thibodeau, who's a monster. It seems like next year's edge rusher class is really, really good. And the NFL needs that kind of talent. They could also do the same kind of thing for one of the premier cornerbacks and really load up on the defense. I think that's kind of one other way that they can go on. If they want to get Devontae Adams, I'm not going to say no. I mean, Devontae Adams is one of my favorite players to watch in the league. And I will say, since Alex and I were kind of having that debate on Twitter,
Let's hear it.
A little bit more did come out that, maybe this situation with Aaron in Green Bay is a little more fixable. So we'll have to see. I'm just of the thinking that, if I'm someone like Devontae Adams and Aaron is gone, then I'm not going to stick around. And I know, Alex pointed out that Keenan Allen kind of re-signed with transitioning to Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert. And respectively, Keenan Allen is a great player, but Alex just said Devontae's the best receiver in the NFL, and I happen to agree. So I think it's a little different there. I just think someone like Devontae Adams would have 20 teams lining up to sign him, paying him just as much money as Green Bay, and he wouldn't have to deal with a transition period. So for me, that's just kind of the thing in terms of Devontae potentially leaving Green Bay. It all just hinges on whether or not Aaron is a quarterback or not, in my opinion.
Wow, it's amazing that you guys call him the best receiver in the NFL. I wonder if someone should start a franchise with him or something.
Little foreshadowing there. So let's dive into that for a second. This is going to be a lot of fun. I know last time for the quarterbacks, we only went to 15, so each of us took 5. Today, we are going to add one more pick each. So each of us is going to pick 6 players today. Tight ends, running backs, and receivers are all going to be included. And like I said, trying to take into consideration their ages, their contract status, and obviously future prospects as well as current skill levels. So, Tyler, you kind of foreshadowed it. Why don't you start us off here?
Thank you. So I am going with Devontae Adams. I tried to look at these receivers and running backs. Didn't care much about tight ends because there's like 6. But I looked at the receivers and running backs and tried to break them down on a either like per catch, per touch, per game kind of basis rather than total stats. And I broke each of them down. I have 30 receivers and ranked them 1 to 30. And the lower your number was like the better receiver you are or running back that you were. So
yeah,
Devontae Adams came in out of the 5 categories that I had of yards after catch per reception, first downs, which is, not quite per game, but then yards per game, yards per route run, and drop percentage. I have Devontae Adams as first in 3 of those 5 categories, second in another one, and then 8th in yards after contact per reception. So he, in terms of where he ranked in his score compared to the running backs as well, is number 1 for both the running backs and the wide receivers. And I think the way it shakes out is he's clearly very talented, very good at his job, a quarterback's best friend completely. And I'm going to try to punt on running back for a little bit longer. So to me, this is kind of an easy choice because of how high he ranked for me. And obviously we're not doing fantasy football, but he's also first year in fantasy football. So there we go. So I'm going to go with Devontae Adams here as my first pick to start my franchise. There we go.
I think that's absolutely the right call. And I think, the one concern, if there is any about Devontae, is maybe he gets a little banged up. There is a little bit of an injury history, not in terms of like missing extensive time, but he'll miss a game or 2 here and there. But in terms of skill set, I think he's going to be 29 by the time he gets his next contract. But I think his game, similar to like a Larry Fitzgerald kind of player, Keenan Allen, can certainly translate, for the next 3-4 years at an elite level still. So I absolutely agree with Devontae Adams. So I'm second here. I have been a strong advocate for, running backs don't really matter all that much in the NFL. And so just kind of considering things here, I was really leaning towards Alvin Kamara for a second. Like when we decided that this was going to be the next episode, I was like, it's going to be Kamara, like no brainer. Like let's book it in and set it right now. But then I was just kind of looking at, just the skilled player talent in general. There are so many good running backs these days on rookie contracts. And while I do think Kamara, in my opinion, is the best running back in the NFL, his contract is kind of giving me a little bit of pause in terms of like financially, makes $15 million per year. And I'm not super interested in paying a running back that much money. Like Austin Eckler makes $6.125 million a year. Like to me, running back is a position you can get cheap. And so I'm going to go with Stephon Diggs, who is the 11th highest paid receiver in the NFL. He is still 28 years old, and we saw him take a true ascending leap this last season in Buffalo. And I think, in this hypothetical situation where you can get him into, our team and build around him, I think he can definitely be that kind of player. He's been incredibly consistent in terms of games played at least 14 games in all of the last 4 seasons. And really he's shown a variety of skill set. In Minnesota, he was used much more as a deep threat. This last season, he was used more as a route runner, intermediate kind of player. And like I said, I'm getting a true number 1 elite receiver here. and I'm paying him the 11th highest contract at $14 million a year. So Stephon Diggs' contract really was the difference for me in terms of him over Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, no, that's a great call, Diggs. I didn't watch him specifically, but watching Allen throw to him, he bailed out Josh Allen so many times. What a quarterback's best friend. What a productive year for him. So good pick there, absolutely.
All right, so next pick, let's see what we got. Let me see those wide receivers because running backs don't matter, and I'm not taking one in the first round. All right, so I think there might be a bit of a difference here between the idea of best receiver versus receiver I would want on my team in terms of like the advanced metric that is game breakability. And I'm kind of going to go with Tyreek Hill. And I know that DeAndre Hopkins is on the board, and that's something to consider, but I just think Tyreek Hill, the way that he stretches the field, the way that he makes Kansas City's offense immensely better than it would be without him. Like he's the wide receiver that makes the biggest difference from a team standpoint. I do ultimately think someone like DeAndre Hopkins is the better receiver, and I'm sure he will go in these next 3 picks. But Tyreek Hill is a guy that can step in. His contract also not too bad from what I understand. So to me, Tyreek Hill, not a no-brainer pick, but just from the value of what he brings to a team. You know, people talk about the best duos in the NFL or as patch casters, and to me, it's Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, unfortunately. And man, I really have gotten suckered into simping for the Chiefs the last 2 episodes. So unfortunately, I have to make another heel turn here and select Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, well, his contract is $18 million per. And he comes up in 2023 for free agency. So it's not a great contract, but it's not, horrible either.
Yeah, I mean,
Alex, I know you're an Eagles fan, but are you sure you're not a Cowboys fan? Because you sure don't mind taking guys who are under investigation or who were under investigation between Deshaun Watson and Tyreek Hill.
I mean, look, Jerry Jones has a point there. It's best player available.
What's the point? Yeah, I guess.
No matter, what other parts of their story might be available.
All right, Tyler, get your next pick in here.
Sounds good. So you did mention DeAndre Hopkins, and he is ranked as the second receiver on my board in terms of the stats that I have. But in terms of age and contract, I don't know if I would go with him. Now, if I wanted to win today, perhaps I'd go with Hopkins. And Hopkins and Adams would be something special, absolutely. But I'm going to go with the wide receiver 3 on this board, who gives you nearly identical production and ranking on board, but being much, much younger and much, much cheaper. And so I am going to go, if I can load this thing, way down here with Justin Jefferson, who is 3rd on my list when ranking the 5 things that I said. And I was kind of surprised, but again, he had the most yards since Randy Moss or whatever it was. Yeah. So a guy that walks in the league that talented, that young, on that cheap contract. I'm trying to build my team here. Yes, I do think there are other better receivers like Hopkins, but Jefferson gives me something pretty close at a much, much better value. So I'm going with Justin Jefferson here.
Yeah, you guys are taking up all the players that Chargers Twitter is going to hate. So thank you for that one. But I think that's an absolutely a smart decision, especially, from a financial team building standpoint. You get an elite receiver who's going to have an elite contract after next season, and then you get an elite receiver on a rookie contract. And that's kind of a model that I'm going to be following here as well. I'm going to go with Calvin Ridley as my next pick. Somebody that I think is truly another one of those ascending players, and really took advantage of Julio Jones being a little banged up last season. He ended up having 90 catches for 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns, really establishing himself as kind of the yang to Julio's yin, if you will. Julio being that elite deep threat and Ridley being that elite route runner. So clearly I have a type at receiver. Obviously, that kind of is influenced by Keenan Allen. I like my guys to be able to run every single route in the book. And I think having, again, that financial flexibility of Diggs' contract, the 11th highest paid receiver, now Ridley on a rookie contract. I get two guys who are arguably elite talents and just a lot of financial flexibility. Ridley is heading into his 4th year in the NFL, so he's going to have his 5th-year option, assuming picked up. So, he's going to be a little bit more expensive than Justin Jefferson would be. But I'm okay, biting the bullet on a potential Ridley extension in a couple years, again, because of the financial flexibility of Stephon Diggs' contract.
That's a very good call. I'm curious. So I do have Ridley over the player I'm going to mention, but you ranked 3 days ago Terry McLaurin over Ridley. So what was the difference here?
Wait,
looking at more stats, because it says rank 1 through 4. Who y'all got? And it's a picture of Terry McLaurin, AJ Brown, Kenny Galladay, and Calvin Ridley. And you went with Ridley. Now, I agree with you, though. Like, that's what I would have done because I was surprised that the production worked out that way.
I think probably when I looked at that, I had not looked up the actual production. Terry McLaurin, I think, is a really special player as well, and he only makes like $900,000. So I think financially, that's a really smart decision. But I just think, looking at the metrics, the numbers, and I did watch a little bit of him. I think he truly is an ascending player where I feel like McLaurin is probably a little propped up by being literally the only option in Washington. So I do think that really is a better player looking at that. So I was wrong about that list first. And, once I looked at things, I had to take a step back.
That's awesome.
All right, so we'll get to pick number 2 here in the second round. Pick number 3. All right, so based on the fact that nobody has taken a running back yet, I'm not going to take a running back yet. I don't want to be the first one to do it. So let's see that wide receiver tab.
Take your time.
Yeah, so there's some interesting stuff. You do have AJ Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, Michael Thomas. You did mention Terry McLaurin, which I actually think is really good value based on the money he's making and what he'll eventually resign for. So if you get a couple relatively cheap years of him, I think that would be something interesting. But actually here, I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb from the Cowboys. So that is going to be my pick here. I would go with DeAndre Hopkins, but much in the vein of the Justin Jefferson pick, if we're kind of building a franchise, I kind of have my big money guy in Tyreek Hill already. I think CeeDee Lamb, had he not gotten hurt, arguably could have been a, best receiver rookie candidate. So, that would have been kind of interesting. But, I think he's the best receiver of that class. I think Jefferson will be very close, back and forth between their careers. But what I saw from him, just the kind of catches he made, it's kind of very reminiscent of Prime Odell, which is scary to have to deal with just for the next, 15 years as an Eagles fan. That's great. But yeah, he can run every route in the book. I think he's the ultimately most talented receiver from that class, and on his rookie contract, don't have to pay him for another 3-4 more years. And so that's why I'll go with CeeDee Lamb. And he really just makes a difference from the slot, which I think is just, such a growing thing in the NFL, where if you have that dynamic slot guy, so much changes for your offense and opens everything up for the outside.
Well, and to your point too, like he struggled with some injuries, but so did, he didn't have Dak for, most of the season either. And he still put up 74 catches, 950 yards or 935 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So I loved CeeDee Lamb coming out of college. He was my wide receiver 1 that year. So I'm a big fan of that as well.
You're totally a closet Cowboys fan. Come on, dude.
I'm not a Cowboys fan. I just know CeeDee Lamb CeeDee Lamb is gonna roast whoever the Eagles put up against him, and it's probably gonna be like the worst. Darius Slay, look, I love you, man, but
it might be the Chargers this year. So I'm going to go with Christian McCaffrey here because I do think he is that good, despite the fact that he was injured last season. His presence was certainly missed, even though they still beat the Chargers. But I'm going to go with McCaffrey here because a lot of people are going to vote for that too.
Good idea. McCaffrey, absolutely. I think he definitely has an argument for best and most talented running back in the NFL. And I'm looking forward to really seeing what he'll do just as a casual fan in an offense that's not led by Norv Turner. So next here, I'm actually going to go and start the run on tight ends now. And this is somebody that I think a lot of people are going to be surprised with here, but I'm going to go with Darren Waller. When I'm looking at some things here, I think George Kittle, I think the flexibility that he provides as an elite run blocker, it absolutely made me consider him as well. And he's much younger. He's, I think, 26 years old compared to Waller, that's 29, and Kelsey, that's 32. But Kittle is injured so frequently that I'm a little worried there. And talking about financial flexibility, which I've been really harping on, Darren Waller has the 10th highest cap hit of all tight ends. Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Austin Hooper, all these guys make more money than Darren Waller does. And then you look at, the statistics and the metrics, and, over the last 2 years, he's only 300 yards behind Travis Kelce. And I don't think a lot of people realize that just because he's been on the Raiders. And in this kind of instance, he's not getting triple teamed because he's Diggs and Ridley as opposed to Hunter Renfrow and Nelson Aguilar, and he'll have hopefully a better quarterback than Derek Carr. So I'm going to start the run on tight ends with Darren Waller. I think a lot of Chargers fans are obviously going to be a little surprised by that, but I just think one of the most physically gifted players in the league and has such an affordable contract. And I think in this kind of situation, I'd be able to truly maximize his potential by getting him out of John Gruden's offense.
All right. So let's go to the next pick here. I actually kind of know who I'm going to take already now that a running back has been taken. I thought about this for a while Steven was talking, but there's sort of a debate here for me between Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara. It's not Ezekiel Elliott.
He's going to go Cowboys team again.
There's sort of a debate here between those two. Kamara is about $4 million more expensive at this point, so Derrick Henry does come a little bit cheaper, a little bit more affordable. And I kind of do already have two elite receivers already when it comes to Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb. So I'm going to go with the guy who is.
I'm picking Zeke if he doesn't come back on.
Yeah, it looks like we lost him for good this time.
Oh,
but
man.
It looked like he was leaning towards Derrick Henry. So,
yeah, he said Derrick Henry was cheaper. So I'm going to go with Derrick Henry for Alex here. That's a great selection, Alex. Congratulations on your
we can get him back on
selection there. Yeah, we'll try to get him back on. And all right, so I'm going to move on next to. Okay, so it could be fun. Like I could have a little bit of fun here and go with a double running back set here, which would be a lot of fun. But I think I can still wait because I don't need to make many more running back moves. Do I go tight end? Do I go with the best tight end in football? Possibly Travis Kelce or George Kittle. Do I go with another running back? No, I already said I wouldn't. So, you know what? At this point, okay. DeAndre Hopkins is the easy answer, but I'm not going to take him because I want to preserve the fact that we're trying to team build here.
Right.
So I'm not going to go with that. It's not going to look good to wait this long for DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm going to move on. Okay. Definitely a lot of options here.
Absolutely.
And I don't know what their contracts are. So I'm just, man, do I go with the best receiver, the better receivers, or do I go with a younger guy? I am going to look at my list real fast. That's why I made it. And of the receivers that I have left, so Hopkins is still my number 2. Brown, Robinson. See, it'd be really dumb. So DJ Moore did fall in the top 10. That's really, really tempting to take someone like DJ Moore.
Yeah, it looks like we got
because he
Alex
fell
back in, Tyler.
in that top 10. We got Alex back. I can stop talking. Hi, Alex.
Oh,
So we took Zeke for you.
So anyway, I was gonna take Derrick Henry.
Thank God.
Cool.
no, we took Derrick Henry for you.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, I really wanted Derrick Henry. You know, he's going to get me at least 2,000 yards in production. Maybe not the smartest guy to start a franchise with from that rookie contract value thing we were talking about, but he's still cheap in relation to the kind of premier running backs we were talking about. So in terms of fantasy football, in terms of starting a franchise with the two elite options I already have, yeah, I'm going to go with Derrick Henry.
Okay, this is going to take me a minute to figure out who I want to take. Okay. No, that wouldn't make any sense either. It's so hard to pick between a good player and an ascending, potentially good player when freaking Saquon Barkley and Dalvin Cook and Kamara on the board, and I go with like RB 82. So, but for the sake of losing the poll and whatever, I'm going to go with a player that did rank pretty well on my list of running backs. He is ranked 6th, including being first in breakaway percentage and yards per attempt, and then also top 10 in elusiveness and yards after contact on average per touch. And if I can find him, I will take J.K. Dobbins here, who is very young on a good team. And I know we're taking him on a different team, like a fake team, but Dobbins is young. The metrics test out very well, and it's not going to kill my cap. So I'm going with J.K. Dobbins, who's going to be a breakout candidate this season, I think.
Yeah, absolutely a breakout candidate. I think someone, especially in fantasy football, that is going to be a machine. So I'm still not taking a running back here. I'm in terms of financial and team building, I'm just going to punt it for as long as I possibly can. So I'm going to go with another receiver here and shore things up. I've got my 2 route runners in Diggs and Ridley, both guys who will have semi-expensive contracts. Ridley, I think, could be potentially looking at a top 5, top 6 deal. So I need 2 things right here, in my team, and that's speed, and that is a rookie contract. So I'm going to take Jalen Waddle, who is going to really provide quite a complement to my 2 route runners, really give me a lot of flexibility on the field and on the cap. With Jalen Waddle's cap hit and rookie contract. So I'll have Diggs, Ridley, and Waddle. I know he's probably way down there for the fantasy football list. But in terms of this exercise where we're trying to build a roster and not just, the best players, obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is still on the board here, which would be, crazy to me. But, I am trying to kind of envision this from like a GM's perspective and trying to really get into the swing of things. So I would have 2 players, Diggs and Ridley, like I said, on bigger contracts, and same with Waller. So I need a rookie contract to give me that flexibility, and I'll get Waddle for the next 5 years, and then I'll have him be the burner, take the top off guy, yards after catch guy to really complement the trio of pass catchers that I already have.
Yeah, I mean, I think Waddle makes a lot of sense. There's tons of receivers you could go with there with Devonta Smith and all those guys that are on cost-controlled contracts we already talked about, Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. I'm actually just curious. Let's go to the tight end tab out of morbid curiosity. All right. So, yeah, this one is interesting. I mean, Kelsey is really good, but, kind of expensive. So I don't know if I really want to go there. Since we're kind of drafting guys to a fantasy team, if we don't think they're being properly used elsewhere, I kind of want to go with Mark Andrews, which is what I'm going to do here. I do think he's kind of a tight end that is going to crack that top 5 if he hasn't already very soon. Baltimore's offense with Craig Roman is just, very questionable to me, so he doesn't always get the opportunities that he should. And now they've drafted a bunch of receivers in there, and it's still TBD to see on how Rashad Bateman and that whole crew fits in. So I do think guys like George Kittle and Travis Kelce are better. and you can make an argument. And some of the other guys that we consider top 5, Darren Waller, obviously there too. But to me, Mark Andrews is just really good value here for a pass catcher. If I have Patrick Mahomes, who I drafted last time, I'm very confident in him throwing the ball to Mark Andrews. Just seems like a really good fit with the 2 receivers and the running back I already have. Not a bad blocker either. So I think ultimately just really good value when it comes to tight ends.
Yeah, my only thing with Mark Andrews, because he was someone that I was considering as well. This is his last year of his contract, so he's going to be getting a fat extension from them as well. So for me, like in terms of tight ends, like I do think, like you were saying, you can get him into a better situation, get him into a pass first situation, and not somewhere that's going to be running the ball, 60% of the time. I can definitely see that kind of logic, but the contract would be something to give me a little bit of pause.
Well, I have 1 year before I have to figure all that out. So, I'll restructure some deals. I'll move around $18 million in Tannehill money, whatever I got to do, and I'll figure it out.
There we go. All right, Tyler, you're up.
Okay, so I definitely have some options here. It's still really weird to see DeAndre Hopkins not taken, but I think at this point we've all mentally told ourselves that we're not going to take him because that's cheating at this point. So I could either go with the overpriced and very good Travis Kelce or George Kittle, which I might have to do at some point because I do need a tight end and we are required to take a tight end. But I might go the cheaper route here. It's just there's not many. Okay. Because I need a tight end and because I do need to go the cheap route, why not make this move? I'm going with Kyle Pitts here.
Damn it.
That's an easy one to me. Yeah, at this point, you can use him. I kind of do need some receiver help, but obviously we're just strictly looking at him as a tight end.
Yeah.
Rookie contract, probably going to be a top 5 tight end like as soon as this year, especially with Julio gone. So, yeah, I'm very comfortable going with Kyle Pitts here. I completely forgot about him. Good thing I was scrolling down looking for cheap tight ends. So I'm going with Kyle Pitts here to start to round out my crew so I can pick up whatever I want with the last pick.
Oh, man. Tyler, we were on the same wavelength there with Kyle Pitts. I was going to take him right here for my spot. I think that's a fantastic pick. That's all good, man. So like I said, not taking a running back. Both of you guys have running backs. So for me, we'll have to see. Let me look at these contracts really quickly of the guys that I have written down.
No problem.
So he's somebody that Tyler mentioned earlier that he was considering, and that's going to be DJ Moore from the Carolina Panthers.
Nice.
Somebody like really fits my kind of mold of receiver again, and really last year, diversified his skill set and proved that he could be a deep threat as well as a route runner. So very similar in the mold of Diggs, somebody that I think is an ascending player. And in this kind of situation, I mean, like just on paper, you get Diggs, Ridley, Waddle, and Moore as your 4 best receivers. And again, workable in the contract realm. And, DJ Moore isn't a free agent until 2023. So, I could extend Calvin Ridley and then the next year wait for DJ Moore. And then in this kind of instance, those 2 would kind of take over after Stephon Diggs' contract would be expired, as well as Jalen Waddle. So pretty happy with how this has turned out in terms of talent and flexibility. And this is kind of insane, right? Because all of these players that we are talking about, Jefferson, Ridley, Moore, Lamb, they're all like elite production guys. And they're all on rookie contracts. And we haven't even talked about someone like A.J. Brown. So it's just kind of crazy to me. The young talent at the receiver position in the NFL is truly insane.
Yeah, no, that is a great call there. He's the 7th ranked receiver on my board based on the production that he had on a per game, per touch basis. So, yeah, really, really good call there. I wouldn't have guessed. I certainly didn't pay a lot of attention to the Panthers last season, but there he was above Tyreek Hill and Keenan Allen and Calvin Ridley and all these guys. So I was actually pretty surprised. A good call there.
So I'm going to be totally honest. Last pick, I apologize because I totally forgot Kyle Pitts existed. And
yeah, me too.
That was a big problem.
It's all good.
But You always be a redheaded stepchild on this team. And so I'm going to go to the receiver tab. I know that we haven't picked DeAndre Hopkins, and I would think about doing that. But
sorry, I'm just laughing at Tyler pulling up the kicker tab where Alex is talking.
Michael Batchley, not bad value here, but I do think DeAndre Hopkins would be fun. But we have pointed out his contract as well as the young receiver talent just throughout the league. And I'm going to prove I'm an Eagles fan and go with Devontae Smith with my last pick. And I think that's just going to be a good move. You get 5 years of contract flexibility with his 5th-year option. I think out of the 3 top receivers that we were kind of consistently talking about in Chase, Waddle, and Smith, I think he's the best, kind of finesse route runner out of that group. And if we're taking him on this team that we've been drafting, he doesn't have to play with Jalen Hurts or have any, question marks at quarterback in terms of development. That doesn't mean I hate Jalen Hurts. It just means we don't know what Jalen Hurts is yet at this point. So I think that, having Devonta Smith kind of isolated from the stench of the rebuilding Eagles right now would probably be the best thing for him. So I'm going to take Devonta Smith with my last pick. And therefore, that gives me, really 2 rookie contracts I can kind of work with in building this team. Should have had 3, but I forgot about Kyle Pitts. So, stinky move by me. But I am okay with the team I picked.
Well, you got one more pick to do. We're not done yet.
Oh, I were doing 6. I thought it was 5 like last time. Whoops. All right. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah. I am going to preemptively I'm going to make my team totally trash here. It's going to stink. This is a horrible decision, but I'm trying to screw over Steven here because why not? I'm going to take Austin Eckler here on his contract and add him to my team.
Damn you.
My team sucks now, but whatever.
Well, to be fair, you could basically use McCaffrey and Eckler as receivers. So, you don't need more people. So, I hate you. But I'll go with Najee Harris.
I mean, it's very good in terms of win the poll plus minus.
There you go. It is very good with the poll plus minus. But yeah, I'm going to go with Najee Harris, someone I think that is going to be, a top 5-6 running back pretty much right away, and especially in terms of fantasy football. Tyler and Alex have the 1st and 2nd picks in our fantasy football draft. And it's a keeper league, so one of you should absolutely take Najee Harris. Just going to say that right now. But again, rookie contract, somebody that I think, can bring that elite production and also be very safe on the cap. If we were going even more, I maybe would consider Javonte Williams, who doesn't have the kind of wear and tear that Najee Harris does have. Javonte's also 2 years younger, but, I think just that extra 5th-year option that I get with Najee Harris, courtesy of the Pittsburgh Steelers being stupid, gives me even that much more flexibility. And then after Harris hits that 5th-year option, I'll say bye-bye and draft another rookie running back, because that is absolutely the best way teams should handle the running back position.
All right. So for my last pick, I'm considering maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. You could really make an argument here for them at this position, but of course not. We are going with what the hell, Tyler? Okay, I didn't mean that. This is a serious thing. Okay, but all right. Okay.
No, we're doing skill players. You got to pick a skill player.
I know. I mean, he's been on the board for so long. All right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take DeAndre Hopkins. Screw the salary cap. I already have 2 rookie contract players. Not Robert Griffin. Okay. Yeah, I want DeAndre Hopkins.
There you go.
Are you sure? I can change it back.
Are you going to click the button? All right. And so, yeah, ultimately, no, I'm pretty sure on this one. But yeah, DeAndre Hopkins, just really good value here. I mean, I know he's getting $20 million, and it feels crazy to say good value, but he's just that good of a receiver ultimately. And I do have the 2 rookie contracts to balance it out. So Steven wanted us to focus on the cap. So there, I have 2 guys that are getting paid pennies. So therefore, I can guilt trip myself and take DeAndre Hopkins as my guilty pleasure. But yeah, receiver in the league. I think you could really debate it with him and Adams, and just, stocking up on all of these receivers. I mean, the real one trait that I think all of us like is guys who can run every route in the book, like Steven said, and that is DeAndre Hopkins. In addition to his jump ball ability, he's the best in the league at that too. Sorry, Mike Williams, with your niche little skill set. But yeah, ultimately, DeAndre Hopkins has to be here on this board of 18 players that we picked. I just couldn't let him slide completely out of it. Also here, I think you could consider Alvin Kamara, just because of the total value that he does bring to a team. Maybe, we've been talking about, okay. We've been talking about so much. Tyler's messing around.
Tyler.
We've been talking about so much of, Austin Eckler having that passing and receiving and rushing role. And Alvin Kamara has kind of been the king of that. So I think you could also, verify kind of taking him there. But I'm going to go with D-Hop.
Yeah, obviously if we were talking just purely, doing a fantasy football draft and taking the best players, then DeAndre Hopkins, Alvin Kamara would definitely be going sooner. And, in this kind of situation, like Alex is saying, you've got, 1 year of Mark Andrews on his rookie contract as well as Devontae Smith and CeeDee Lamb. So, I think that qualifies. I think that's fine. That's your decision. Which means you're probably going to win the poll because you have DeAndre Hopkins as your last pick. So, we'll have to see, but it's all good in good fun here.
Yeah, all in good fun. I won't totally be butthurt by the outcome of this poll at all.
Hey man, I only got like 7% of the quarterback votes. So like,
oh, you went up. That's good.
I was like really.
Well, listen, the whole bit was start a franchise, and you were like, I'm going to go with Tom Brady, who has arthritis in both of his knees. So, I mean, I think that was the problem.
It probably was, man. But, if I get 2 more years of Tom Brady and 2 Super Bowls, then I'll deal with, Joe Flacco for the 3 years after that or something like that. Oh, man. But this was a lot of fun.
Well, for all of Tom Brady's 7 Super Bowls, you can have – for all of Tom Brady's 7 Super Bowls, you can have 7% in the poll.
Well done. All right, guys. Well, this has been a lot of fun. We have so many more of these conversations planned. We'll get to do the offensive line next. And I am so excited because I get the first pick of the offensive line conversation. So
I see how that worked out. Okay. All right. Yeah. All
right. Super excited about that one. And then we're going to continue that into the defensive conversation as well. And, this was just, I love just kind of talking about this stuff. Being able to have this thought process of really building a franchise is so interesting to me. So Tyler, any other thoughts? And then Alex, before we wrap up today's show.
Sorry I took Austin Eckler, but that'll give me like 3% of the votes in the poll, so I'm really looking forward to that.
No, not much else, but this was a really fun exercise to do. I'm going to find a way to somehow take a personal day when we talk about offensive line players, because I super don't care. But, that's going to be Steven's episode. So, you know what? We'll power through and do that one for him. Because offensive do matter.
Yeah, we do. I really appreciate you guys sticking it out for that episode. It's going to be a lot of fun for me personally. But yeah, this will be a series that we're really excited about. As always, make sure and leave us a rating or review. Kelvin Benjamin. Now Tyler's the one having fun with the players in the chat. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Let us know what you think. Of course, we will tweet out a poll. So I'm sure Tyler's going to win since he took Austin Eckler, but that's all right. It's all in good fun. So stay tuned for next episode, and we'll see you guys later.